don't hesitate to ask. One, we can share best practices because we're seeing districts that are doing stuff like this all over the country. But then two, and we're willing to do anything to try to get data in faster, stuff, off your plate. We're here for you. So thanks for taking the time to share best practices with your kind of fellow colleagues across the country. Also for us to be able to learn from you. But I also wanted to make sure to extend that invitation. We're here to help you with anything you need.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Matt. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. So you should be seeing on your screen a presentation. Please let me know if you happen to see that. Head shakes. Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Well, welcome everyone to the TIPWeb-IT Meet Up, where we are having the topic of discussion of navigating COVID-19. This session is really about each of you and providing a connection between districts to share ideas and learn best practices on navigating this device assignment and then collection during COVID-19. This is definitely an unprecedented time where we're all kind of navigating uncharted waters. So I really appreciate each of you joining us today. The goal of this session is to share your information on processes that have worked for each of you and address how you have quickly distributed to students, as well as doing it in a safe manner to ensure that we are following through with those safety protocols. My name is Stephanie Delgado, and I'm the Education Manager here with Hayes Software Systems, and I'm really excited to get to talk to you about this today. So this session is focused on districts that have enrollment of less than 25,000 or so, but really this conversation is for all districts of any size. So don't worry if you're like, oh, Steph, I'm not within that realm, not an issue in any means. This is for everybody. So also look for additional opportunities. In the next few weeks or so, we hope to have additional sessions similar to this, just to help you guys work through this time frame. So for today, our conversation is going to be around what has it looked like to quickly come up with ways to distribute to students that will progress into what it potentially will look like to collect assets, and then some other ways that Hayes potentially can help you, and hopefully you'll be able to get some insight from others that have been dealing with the same kind of scenario. If it's okay, I would like to do a couple of housekeeping items just to make sure we're all good. You guys all definitely know about muting yourself. Please know that, of course, this is an open conversation. So I do encourage you to unmute yourself and have, and chime in here or there if you see fit for yourself. There will be times for Q&A with that point in mind. But again, if there's something that you're really passionate about, please go ahead and just take the time, unmute, and say, hey, staff, or whoever's speaking, if you would like to mention something. Additionally, you've all been already using it. You can utilize the chat window, and we have individuals on the chat to ensure that we are capturing any of your comments or questions. I've already kind of mentioned updating your names, but just as a reminder, if you can make sure to update your names, that just ensures that if we happen to call on you, or if others want to mention or respond to you, they're able to call you by name. All right, everybody, I'd like to kick it off. Matt, I know that you already kind of introduced yourself, so unless is there another piece you'd like to kind of mention, I'm going to pass it on to Anna.
The only other thing I'll mention is that the most unenviable position in this whole thing is yours, Stephanie. Thank you for leading a group of people, so you're doing great.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, we're lucky to have Steph. If you've not been through training processes with her, she definitely handles everything on the fly, very adaptable, which is what we're going for today as well. My name is Anna. I'm the Chief Operating Officer with Hayes Software Systems. I've met a lot of you guys either in the sales process or afterwards. I'm super excited to be able to be here with you guys today and hear how things are going.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. Jason?
Hi, guys. Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jason Moore. I'm the product manager here at Hayes Software, and I'll be helping Steph out today, monitoring time as well as our chat window. If you have a question, please speak up. We're here to help you. And I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say about these unprecedented times. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Hey, Andressa, are you on?
I am. Hi, everyone. So great to see so many familiar faces. Andressa Fantini here. I am the Director of Customer Success. My team's main responsibility is ensuring that you are feeling good and you are successful as you can be. Thank you so much for making yourself available today. It's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to get some feedback from you afterwards and even be able to help you all during this time.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Andressa. And then one other moderator that we will have today is Deborah Menifee with Willis ISD. I will be letting her introduce herself here in just a little bit. So I'll keep that as a fun little piece here in just a moment. But know that we'll have an additional person that will get to kind of dive a little bit deeper into processes shortly. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and continue on. Let's talk a little bit about the current climate. Here at Hayes, gosh, it was right away that we really started to get some general kind of questions about distribution. We have had conversations with current customers as well as non-customers on what plan they can look to quickly get assets into students' hands. Now, of course, this has been dependent on many factors, such as district requirements, as well as the means for the district to obtain those needed assets. There's been conversations regarding even regions. So within a district, student locations, some have limited access to internet even. So those that live in rural or mountain areas, and addressing ways that they can get potential hotspots or get access to internet for these students. So we have seen just a gamut of scenarios. And what we have been trying to do is work with each of the districts that reach out to us on an individual basis to find out what the best plan or method is to get those assets issued out to students. I'll continue on. All right, so then as we are looking at district's current one-to-one initiative, right? Hayes has really been trying to look at ways that we can help districts enable this education. And you know, as we're talking about, it really expands beyond the classroom now. There's so many things that are taking place. So for those that have already distributed, these are things that we have kind of encountered. There has been the need to acquire enough devices to issue to students. So pulling devices from carts in classrooms, I'm sure I could get a little hand up from someone or a few of you who've had to do that. We're going out and digging into those carts and just trying to obtain enough assets to be able to distribute out to your student base. And potentially having to purchase devices, so the time frame is expanded because there's others also purchasing at this time as well. And then the other piece I've kind of mentioned that I bet many didn't originally think about is for those that do not have internet access, and how you are able to ensure that each of those students have the access that they need. I've heard some really neat stories from districts where some are putting hotspots in school buses and they're going and they're parking them in neighborhoods. We've also heard some districts that they are putting hotspots at campuses so that parents can drive up or can go and bring their child there to do their homework. So you guys are looking just at all options and scenarios to ensure that students have the device that they need and they have the access that they need to be able to continue education. Additionally, addressing the need to provide that wireless, right? So the hotspot aspects. But with that also is another piece that I didn't even think about myself until I started hearing this scenario, which is, what about if you do not have enough devices? And so you do have to figure out ways to ensure that only one device is actually issued out per household. And so we've seen quite a few scenarios where districts are saying we've got to not only worry about getting the assets, where it be a Chromebook, a laptop of some sort, a hotspot, but now we also are tracking the amount of devices that are in a household as well. And then looking for optimal scenarios for each district. So distribution within TIPWeb-IT is probably, of course, optimal, right? Because it ensures that full transparency of where items are throughout your district and whose hands they are in. But there have been times where that is just not feasible, maybe the timing, and so you may have to look at other ways to capture the data. So Hayes has definitely been providing templates, again, for customers as well as even non, to capture the most pertinent information that is needed to ensure that later on, when you're able to kind of backtrack, you have that data that you need, such as, of course, the student information, the device information, their site, and so forth. Also, giving options within the application depended on if assets are currently already in the application or not. So we've seen also scenarios where some of the devices are currently in TIPWeb-IT, but maybe some are not. And what are ways that will work best for your district to ensure you can distribute out in that quick time frame? Also, there is something else we have been doing for our districts. This has I've seen this actually help quite a few, and that is giving the opportunity to have a virtual site where all students are moved to, and then you're able to distribute from one location. And that helps when you are doing a more centralized distribution versus distributing from each of the campuses. And we've seen both of those scenarios as well, of distributing from every campus. A lot of times that has to do with the size of the district, if it's a larger district, or potentially just getting everything to one location, so that if you are distributing for just maybe one or two central locations, you just have to worry about going to that specific location. So we have definitely seen quite a few different scenarios, and one thing that we are continually working towards is finding ways that make sense for you and just working through that with you. All right, so as we are talking about assigning devices in this current climate, you know, districts are moving fast to get these assets distributed. They are coming up with their very own streamlined distribution processes to determine what the process is in distributing out these mass amounts of devices in this time frame. So one thing that we have also been focused on is helping districts to decide how many locations, so as I mentioned a moment ago, that they will be distributing from, working through that, thinking through what will make the most sense for their student base, family base. Also, at the same time, reducing exposure to staff, to students and their families. So being able to get those devices in their hands while also ensuring that safety aspect with social distancing. And we've heard several variations to this from, you know, where it's, you know, they drive up and we have maybe something on the device already that says the student's name, we hand it to them. We have seen where that is, you know, just a varied scenario depending on what works best for your district. Now, something else that we have kind of tried to capture is what method are you going to be able to utilize while following social distancing to capture signatures, right? Because at the end of the day, you definitely want to be able to ensure that the correct student is receiving the asset that they should, and that you have that full kind of transparency on that asset. And so we have seen quite a few scenarios. Of course, again, if you were able to just, without social distancing in mind, be able to utilize the digital signature within TIPWeb-IT, that would be wonderful. But as we are looking at social distancing requirements, we have seen some other things from Google Sheets or some sort of Google form, as well as utilizing another application, maybe a parent portal of sorts. And I know that Deborah actually herself has a scenario that Willis ISD has used themselves. And actually, I would like to take the moment now to transition over to Deborah. But before so, do I have any comments or questions about what I've covered so far? No? Okay. Miss Deborah, I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so we can have you at the forefront. So bear with me a moment. All right. And everyone.
Thank you, Stephanie. Just to tell, I know we have people from all over. So just to tell you a little bit about where Willis ISD is, just for a point of reference, we are about an hour north of Houston. We are a fairly small school district. We have about 8,000 students, 1 high school, 2 middle schools, and 5 elementaries. I don't know if that's still considered small. I don't feel like we're large. So I actually think it's the perfect size, of course. So yes, we distributed devices only to our secondary campuses. So we were super fortunate in that we went one-to-one, or we have a one-to-one device program at our high school this last year, and implemented TIPWeb-IT. So all of those devices were checked out to our high school students already. About 90% of our high school students received devices. There's still about 10% that for whatever reason, sometimes in some cases their parents didn't want them to have it. In other cases, just various reasons that never actually checked out a device from the district themselves. So we had those to consider, as well as we wanted to make the opportunity available to our middle school students. So yes, there was some cart unwiring at the middle school campuses involved. And that sounds like it's not a big deal, but it takes a little bit of time.
It does.
Right. So at first it seemed so easy. We're just going to get the devices out of the carts. But wait, you have to unwire all the plugs.
Mm-hmm.
So it was our district's decision to have the parents or have the students request a device. We created a Google form for that. And then we designated 2 pickup days. My team came up and wired the carts for everybody up to the first day. We checked it out through TIPWeb-IT, so that way we had that record. And then we had our device day, which was a drive-through, much like they're doing the lunches. And we did it on all 3 individual campuses, and our campus administration was involved. And that was important to us because we felt like they knew the kids. One of our concerns was, of course, I know some districts did an ID where the parent had to bring an ID in order for the device to be checked out. Some people had a signature, and we were at that point wanted as least amount of contact as possible. So we did a mail merge with the information after we assigned the devices out of TIPWeb, and created a full page tag, if you will. We taped it onto the top of the Chromebook. So as we handed that Chromebook to that child in the car through the window, the child then flipped it over, smiled, and we took pictures. And so that was our way, our documentation, such that it was of what kid got what device. They had all their information on that piece of paper taped to the device and their little sweet face. So that's how we chose to address it. There didn't seem to be a problem with taking the pictures. Of course, we're not going to post them anywhere. It's just for our information, and if something to refer back to. So it was simple, extremely simple. We also kept a technology person inside during that day to check out people that just drove up and requested the devices. So we literally only had 2 device days or 2 device checkouts, and we checked out over 700 devices. So it was pretty simple. We also prepped about 20 or 30 devices per campus and left there, and then turned basically anybody that signed up after the fact, or anybody that needed to swap out for technical difficulties or technical issues, up to the principal, since the principal was already, or the admin team was already there handing out low-tech options or food or other situations. They also became responsible for the odds and end technology request.
Wonderful.
So speaking of technology requests, we are integrated with Hayes's their Get Help program. So the technology work orders connects with our TIPWeb-IT. And because we did not want parents submitting work orders into TIPWeb-IT, into Get Help, we created a Google form that parents and students could access and for questions and complete. And it automatically sent an email into our Get Help. So that way we had a record of it, and I could assign it to the appropriate tech or technician or person. In some cases, it wasn't even a technician. In some cases, they just had a question about one of their assignments, and I could then forward that to a principal or a counselor or someone that it was more appropriate for. And in some cases, they're really interesting. I still think I ought to write a book about that. We have one child that entered a help desk ticket because he said he didn't like the grade he got on his test. So we're getting a lot of different requests, but it's not that it was seamless. I mean, we monitored and adjusted and made some changes along the way. But we had all of those devices out to those kids, and the majority of what our plan was by April 1st. So it was boots on the ground, fast, that 2 weeks after spring break.
Yeah, wow. You know what, something, Deborah, that I'm interested to hear about is, have you thought yet about potentially what the summer will look like? Potential collection or not? I've heard so many different scenarios. So I'd love to hear what Willis is kind of throwing around as the option for them.
So, of course, a lot of that depends on the when we're allowed back on our campuses, when they feel like it's safe for students to come back and drop off a device or whatever that scenario is. And our only thoughts at this point, we have made some tentative decisions or discussions. We are kind of playing with the idea of letting all of the high school kids continue to keep their devices all summer, because I don't know how this is going to look. Mm-hmm. So all returning students, we are probably going to let continue to keep their device, with the exception of the seniors. And the graduation plan at this point, while it's still up in the air, we feel like there's going to be some kind of recognition for them where they come to the campus, maybe in ones or twos, very small groups. And at that point, when they do come to the campus, we will ask them or require them to bring their device at that time for check-in. Still is the question about middle school students. I anticipate some kind of drop-off day, maybe kind of the same way. And then the joke is that we're going to put all those devices in a room and lock the door for 30 days. And then feel like that maybe the germs are gone, and then we'll deal with it and do what we need to do. So I know you and I have talked about disinfection services. So that may be something very
sanitization. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And actually, we'll definitely touch on that in a little bit as well, as we are looking for ways for that collection aspect as well. Definitely, that's something that we're all concerned with and is at the forefront of our minds. Well, thank you, Deborah. I really appreciate you chiming in. I would love the opportunity now to actually open up conversation to the rest of the team. Was there any last thing you wanted to add? Or, you're always welcome, of course, to chime in later, as you would like to.
Our district we're in the discussion of collection. And when the conversation came to the junior high, keeping their devices over the summer, junior high is the biggest problem as far as, the keys falling off and issues with the Chromebooks. So what we would like to get ideas on is how to, if we did let them keep them over the summer, how to streamline the repairs when we come back, because we would be inundated and those kids really need other devices from the get-go.
That's a great question, Michelle. We had some great insight. We had another session last week on that process. Before I speak, I'm curious if anybody has already thought through that and would like to chime in for Michelle on her question on what you potentially repairing of devices, and of course adhering to social distancing, right? And I've seen that there's been hundreds of requests in some districts. Do I have anyone that would like to respond to Michelle? That's okay. I'll go ahead. So one thing we have heard when we're looking at social distancing and being able to still support, because you're not only really supporting students at this point, you're supporting the family. So one district last week when we met talked about how they have their office building and they kind of have like this breezeway almost of sorts, but at this open room. that go through the double doors. It's kind of like this little room area, which I think a lot of schools have kind of for that safety aspect, security. And then they have the second double doors. So what they do ahead of time is, now they're utilizing another application, I believe, to submit their requests, which could be, as you know, we've talked about, it could be Get Help, of course, it connects with TIPWeb-IT, that's fantastic. If you do not have it, of course, there's so many other ways. You could do a Google form or a Google sheet of some sorts, or other methods as well. But those definitely we've heard have been utilized a bit, where they initially submit ahead of time so that they get all the information that they need ahead. After that, they schedule a time for this individual to come. So they know who is coming, and they spread out that throughout the day. So just on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they will only have, you know, half a dozen or so students come in to ensure that there's time in between each of them coming. When they come up, they know that what the instruction is for them. So they go through the first set of double doors. There's a table sitting there waiting for them with the device. So the staff has already taken the device, they have put it at the table. It has been there for probably a while. You know, again, just giving some time frame between exposure is always helpful. So then when the student comes and they go up to the table, it has, you know, potentially something for them to sign if needed. But then also there's the device there, and they can also talk to them from where they're at. They can open the door. For them, they said it's a good 15 feet between the table and where their door is to create that social distancing still. So then they just kind of double check, you know, you are so-and-so, yes, here's, you know, swapping out devices, potentially dropping off. And then after the student leaves, after a period of time, they do go and they retrieve the device, and then they actually put it into like a separate storage room that they are not touching for quite some time. Now, every school district is different on the amount of extras that you have kind of at your disposal. There you go. And so it's really up to you, of course, on that scenario. I mean, you could definitely, they say, and again, don't follow steps exactly, you know, but they say at least a good 24 hours, you know, and you are a little closer to being safe in that scenario. So definitely research that in detail for your district. But that's what they're doing. They're putting those devices into a room, and they're like, we have enough at this time. We don't need to keep accessing those that need repairs yet. And so that is their process to ensure that they are able to receive the requests, to have communication between the student or parent. And again, as I think Deborah mentioned, they're kind of, they're ensuring it's more the student than the parent at their district. And then that they are safely swapping out devices, or, you know, exchanging, getting different devices into the student's hands. So that's one way, Michelle. Definitely, I bet throughout this time frame, you know, and as we are progressing, if we find additional ways that districts are kind of working through that, we will definitely push out something to everybody, because we definitely want to continue to share information even after this live session that we're on.
Hey, Steph, we're getting some activity on the chat window. Let's move on over to QA. Corey Price from Tooele County had some ideas about distribution, or he wanted to convey what they were talking about. Corey, can you go ahead and give us some insight?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So we got notification like Friday as we were leaving from work. I think it was the 14th of March that we would be on a soft closure. The governor said that we weren't going to be having school with students. And so over the weekend, we had an extra day. We had to come up with training on how to use Google Classroom for teachers that have never used it before. We had to come up with ways to make sure students that needed devices got devices. And so we had to find out which students needed devices. And so part of that is that we sent out a little survey just saying, you know, are you going to be okay on devices? Just so we could get a general number. And then we figured out that those that needed devices could there was enough at devices that we could hand out at all our schools, that they could just go to the school that they were at and get a device. And we first limited it to one per family. And then as we got into it a little bit, a couple days after we started, we opened it up to, if you need more than one device for a family, you could do that. The idea about parking a bus in the neighborhood, I love that. I'm going to actually recommend that to our district people, see what
Awesome.
we can do as far as that goes. What we've been telling people, the ones that don't have internet access, is that we have in our area, Comcast is offering 90 days of free internet access for families that don't have it, and not charging a setup fee. So there's also, I think AT&T is doing the same thing. There's a couple other companies that are offering that. For parents and students that don't want to use the technology, the first week we had teachers create packets to send home, but after that, we had our district personnel take over that for each grade, so it was all the same, and take a bit of a burden off the teachers, so they didn't have to create two separate levels of instruction, one for online and one for the packets instruction. Teachers are calling their students, they're contacting them through email, they're making sure that there's progression, but our district is taking the approach that this is a hard time for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to burden parents, we don't want to burden students with lots of work,
Yeah.
and so we're doing our best to do that. But I'm was anxious to hear, because we're still onboarding with you guys. We haven't gotten our stuff up yet. So we've had them fill out just a paper form, put their information on there, and it's clear that if there's any damage, I don't think we'll ever do this, but if there's any damage or the device becomes up missing, that they're in for the cost of the full device.
Yeah.
Replace the full device. So, I mean, we came up with that all in the course over a weekend. So I think we did
that's
okay.
many, right?
Yeah, I think we did okay, but I am anxious to hear what others have done, and how to get the information from the schools that have distributed the devices, get these forms collected and get them into the database with Hayes once we have that set up. So that's what I'm looking at right now.
And that's great to mention, Corey, because you're not the only one that, for whatever reason, the campuses distributed kind of on their own or figured out a way to distribute, and ensuring that you get that correct information, that data that you can then bring into TIPWeb-IT. And so that's something that we are happy to help with and have those conversations with you as you're looking to kind of progress. Like you're saying, you haven't been fully implemented completely yet, but know that we are here to support you. I've actually was working with a district just today we quickly got them up and running, and that was Simi Valley in California. And I think that Philip and Monty are on, and I would love for them to kind of go over what their process looked like for everybody, because we got to see it from the very beginning as they just recently purchased TIPWeb-IT themselves. So Philip or Monty, would you want to just talk to us a little bit about what the distribution process has looked like for Simi Valley?
Well, we've just finished up probably 6 distribution days, where we advertised to the community that on a certain time, 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock at 2 of our major high schools, they could drive up. Our first 4 days were for secondary students, and then our last 2 days were for elementary school students. And our Simi Valley Police Department came out to handle the traffic and help organize. And we handed out almost 4,000 Chromebooks in those 6 days with a something probably almost like 1,600 on one days when we opened it up to the elementary students. And what we found, the difference between a secondary and an elementary, was a lot of secondary students already have computers, so they were asking for 1, sometimes 2 Chromebooks. On the elementary side, it was really an issue of they have 1 computer at the house, but they don't. The students, with so much work being assigned by teachers, no longer wanted to share the home computer. So elementary students, the families were picking up 3, 4. We had several 5s, and we had in some cases, like a group home would pick up 8 Chromebooks at a time. So we had a great support with our student services department. And then what the public didn't see was the 5 or 6 weeks that the entire IT department worked in order to get the Chromebooks out of the carts, unwire the carts, and then pretty much as much as we could sanitize the Chromebooks. 1 or 2 wipes with a disinfectant cloth, and they were turning black because of all the use in the classroom.
Wow.
So one of the next things we're starting to plan, I just got off a conference call earlier today. How do we get them back, or do we leave them at the houses? Ours are almost timed out. They're in year 5 of 7. And there's going to be a cost. Either we're going to have to disinfect them, or we're going to have to pay to have them disinfected, come back. But the promise to the school site principals, which was relayed to me today, is that their carts will be functional again at the start of school. So we're just having that, we're just starting that discussion moving forward.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, so you're already kind of creating those conversations about what collection can look like. I would love to hear how others are also starting to look at and address what collection can look like. Do I have Bob on by chance? Have you in your district started looking at that? MBLA? I thought I saw you on there, Bob. All right. How about Julia? Have you guys had those conversations yet?
No, we have not. So we deployed all the Chromebooks from like the homeschool that the students were at. So we probably will do the same for returning, but we haven't talked about when we're going to do that and what that's going to look like.
Okay. You know, that's part of what this conversation is about. Is there, what about your distribution process, Julia? How did yours maybe differ from others? Are there any general great insights that you'd like to share?
So yeah, like I said, one of the things that we did is that we kept all the Chromebooks at the school they were already located at, and then we just handed out the Chromebooks from there. That prevented us from having to like move Chromebooks from site to site. We have 14 schools. So we just kept them at the school. And then the school's administration pretty much handled the distribution.
Okay.
So the district, you know, reached out to all the parents and let them know that we were having distribution days and that they went to their home site to pick it up. What the schools did is they did kind of like a drive-through setup. So they had like a little tent popped out outside, and the parents just drove through and picked up their device and went.
Nice. Very efficient, just ensuring to get those devices into their hands. I appreciate that.
And then one other thing too that we did is that we wanted to make sure that we reached all parents and students. So, you know, we use multiple forms of communication to try to get that information out there. So sending an email, posting it on social media, doing phone calls. I mean, the schools got down to literally making sure they reached out to every single person and talked to every single parent or student.
Wow.
So, you know, we could reach as many people as possible.
Wow, that's wonderful. Definitely lots of things happening, and I appreciate the way that you guys have looked to make what makes sense for your district and utilizing your sites to ensure that you could, you know, spread out the distribution process. That's great. I have some comments I wanted to make. Ben Glicker with Deming it looks like you guys have kind of already been looking at ways of that collection process. Is that true?
That's true. That's something that's going to be handled greatly by the school sites themselves. They're responsible for the distribution as they have identified the families that will be assigned those laptops. But not to sound too cavalier, frankly, we have anticipated, based on the damage and loss rate that we have with our one-to-one program, that a good number of these devices are going to get pretty beat up, even going home for just a few weeks.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that we're intending to mitigate that, and also to absorb some of that collection, I don't want to say chaos, but uncertainty, is I've had my team prioritize the older devices for distribution for this time. Since it's meant to be a short-term distribution, it's not meant for e-learning, but rather just to have a device in the home for communication purposes. So we've prioritized devices that will still work, but if they were to get run over, we would not be at a great loss since we were already planning on replacing them.
That's a great point to make. And I do believe I've heard this a little bit from another district as well, is already accounting for those assets that you most likely will not be able to receive back for varied reasons. But you're right, being at home for that period of time, especially if multiple students are utilizing these assets, the chance of them coming back and being repurposed is probably a bit minimal.
Hey, Steph, we had a question from
Yeah.
Michael Carter. He says, I'm curious if anyone had to relax their Chromebook security policies before they were sent home.
Oh.
Anybody speak to that here on the call?
And I will mention, or I'll add on to that, you know, we were fortunate that we had just gone through a migration to Chromebooks from Windows devices. So I had 300 old Windows laptops that didn't run Windows well. But when we converted them to Chromebooks using Neverware, they run Chromebooks, or they run Chrome OS enough to get us through. So we're considering a lot of those devices to be consumable, and they may stay out there with those students through the summer. Those are conversations that we still need to have. But we did not have an active one-to-one program. Our student population is made up specifically of alternative ed, special ed, and juvenile hall students. So we had a lot of security policies applied to these devices to prevent them from working anywhere but on our campuses, that we had to quickly remove and get pushed out before that could happen. And now we had some great teachers who were very focused on making sure that students didn't miss out on education. And so some of those devices left our campuses before we could push out policies, and that caused us a little bit of problem and some confusion early on. But you know, we were able to get through that process. But I wonder if anyone you know, had any problems like that.
It's a great question. Does anybody else have you addressed that the kind of need to with your security? Anybody else on the call or session?
We had to adjust our policies to allow them to go off campus.
Oh, to even go off campus, Monty.
Yeah, we used to lock them down so they couldn't leave the district because kids would try and steal them. We'd find them at the local Taco Bell or wherever around town. When they found out they didn't work, they would just ditch them. But so we did have to readjust all of our policies and then make sure all of our technicians went through and made sure as we disinfected them that they did update to those new policies before they left campus to avoid the problems that Michael was talking about. So we definitely did have to. Well, the way we handled it was we did all the policy adjustments we wanted to do for this specific purpose, and we assigned it to specific offsite OUs in Google Admin. That way later we know all the Chromebooks are in those offsite containers and we can move them back to their respective school sites when this is all over. Wow,
yeah. And see, these are all pieces that the rest of us that aren't heavily involved, you know, haven't even really thought about yet. But you guys are doing a lot of other things, you know, just to support the distribution. So alone, just doing the distribution and then the support. So creating, you know, as we're calling them, the work order. So, you know, as Michael, you had mentioned, there were some that kind of slipped through the cracks. So I'm sure people had to somehow submit the request to broaden the security or open the security gates. And then, you know, Monty, as you said, you had to say completely alter your security so that students could even utilize them outside of the school kind of area or realm, right?
Yep. And we also had to worry about content filtering. So we'd never had to worry about that off-site, but we did need to extend our content filtering to the children at home. So now they're using me at home. So there was a lot that went into it, but Luckily, thanks to you guys and your quick actions, at least the distribution part and digital scanners, handheld barcode scanners, made, as Phil said, our lines go very quickly. When we're doing 800 to 600 a day in a 3-hour window, we wouldn't have been able to do that without the help of you guys.
Well, appreciate that. That's awesome, Monty. And I really dislike that I have to cut our Q&A, but we are getting close to the hour, and I definitely want to ensure I respect everybody's time today. If you, just a note, if you can put any comments, questions, requests that you would be interested in knowing in the chat window, I definitely see that we will be able to push something out afterwards to ensure that we encompass everybody's kind of concerns or questions, or any insight that you can give. I've been seeing lots of great kind of insight coming through the chat as well. So I definitely wish we could spend more time, everybody, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to just continue on with the session, if that's okay. And you should be seeing, I'm gonna zip through actually the questions. What I love is our questioning was a little bit more organic today, which is fantastic. Just having those great conversations. So I'm just gonna go ahead and go through those really quickly. And then Jason, do you see my PowerPoint? You wanna give me a head nod? Perfect, thank you. Good. All right, everybody. And actually, speaking of Jason, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of move towards him a little bit here. But something else that Hayes has really been focused on, we've had quite a few conversations internally, is what can we do at Hayes to support you? And so, being actively reviewing the product to see what potential things can be adjusted. And so I'd love to kind of just segue over to you, Jason, if you wanted to make any kind of comments regarding that.
Yeah, obviously we're looking to see at how this is affecting you and where some things might be able to be sped up or maybe more efficiently in this kind of this mass distribution. And obviously when we come back to for the new year, the collection process. So what types of things in terms of, what we can provide for you are you seeing, and what you would like to see happen maybe a little bit better?
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. So just to time's sake, everybody, if there is something that you would like to direct to Jason, of ways potentially that we can look at applying to the application or external the application, please go ahead and put them in the chat window, as well as you can always reach out to us to connect. Jason, what's your email?
Hi, so it's jmoore@haysoft.com.
Mm-hmm. So if you want to actually email him directly. All right, everybody, I'm going to go and continue on to the next area of discussion. So areas that we here at Hayes can support you. Definitely today has been about creating conversation between each of you. I really appreciate how each of you just kind of hopped in and gave feedback and even kind of proposed some questions to others. But there's also things that we would like to ensure that we communicate to you, that we can help to support you as you are navigating these uncharted waters and just trying to figure out, just know that you're not alone, right? So one of the first things is we have definitely adjusted our services and support to meet your needs. I think we've had so many wonderful districts reaching out to our support team. So our support team has been actively involved in helping come up with those plans. Also, I know I personally, I mentioned I just got off a phone call today with Simi Valley and coming up with the plan for them they actually utilized the idea of having one site to distribute from and then being able to push student information to the correct locations, to the correct sites. And I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment. But it was a customized scenario specific to their need, having those conversations of what makes sense. We've definitely had lots of great kind of conversations with each of you. So then with that also is the progression of, okay, coming up with a plan to get those devices issued out. And then what's next? And that's why we're having these conversations. Okay, what comes after that? Being able to support your students, being able to look at ways to potentially collect work orders, as we're saying, so the requests for repairs. Also, how to account for your distribution, whether you have assets that originally weren't, I think Tuele, that's a district who says, hey, we're being onboarded, we're not ready to be able to distribute out of TIPWeb-IT yet. But if you have information outside of the application, we will do our best to help you get that applied and into your specific database within TIPWeb-IT. If you have a mix of information as well. So some is in TIPWeb-IT, some is not quite yet. Also, we will work with you to come up with what that plan can look like. So definitely having some individual conversations with districts. And then, hey, what is it gonna look like after distribution? And that's the piece that's kind of hinting at a moment ago. You may need us to help get those students and their assets moved to the correct location if we did a virtual site for you. One thing is if you have SIS, we are able to help push the students to the correct sites. And of course, as you know, then their assets will follow them as well. And then just a reminder about those spreadsheets. If you had to just quickly issue out and you could only use paper form, Google Forms, various spreadsheets, however it may be, connect with us. We will get you a template so that you will be able to get the information into a way to have us help you load that. So just know we're here for you. And then one big other item, I actually would like to segue over to my friend Anna Maria to talk a little bit about sanitization. Are you on, Anna Maria?
I am. I'm sorry, I was on mute.
No.
Hi guys, my name is Anna Maria Galazzi. I'm one of the solutions engineers at Hayes Software, who is also helping to work with school districts like you all on the sanitization side of it. And so just like you guys learned how to pivot on how to get these devices in the hands of staff and students working remotely, we've been pivoting and listening to your feedback that there's going to be a need for sanitization services, either as they're coming in and need to be repaired, or as they're going to be collected over the summer to be cleaned and then reset for the next year. And then even as you're getting your buildings ready, moving forward with sanitization of the full facility. So working with maintenance and facilities moving forward as well. So we have partnered up with a team that's been doing this for many, many years, and they're actually industry leading in hospital and hospitality cleaning, and they work with corporate level at Marriott. And so they're very used to being able to clean at a high standard, and they're actually trained and certified with CleanCheck certification when it comes to pandemic cleaning, as well as those devices using a very specific method to clean your Chromebooks, tablets, any type of those mobile devices without hurting the actual device, but making sure that there's no spread of disease moving forward so that your staff and students are safe, and then also so that you're safe. And we've been able to pivot this, and if you would like some more information, we can absolutely get that to you after this call as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anna Maria. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So
I was going to add one more thing.
Matt.
So we've actually already had a handful of customers that have said, hey, we kind of got caught in a tricky spot without a lot of planning here, and we weren't planning on sending stuff home with kiddos. We really need you to come in and figure out what we have, how much of it we have, how many devices, how many hotspots, how many, in some cases, textbooks, what's our inventory look like? And while doing that, if you could do that inventory process, give us a baseline of this, of what we have in each of the buildings, and then also do the sanitization at the same time, that would be great. So know that we can kind of partner it up. As Anna Maria said, we can help sanitize things as they come back from students. We can do buses, but then also if you need kind of a combo of physical inventory matched up with sanitization, we can give you a good clean baseline of inventory and make sure your buildings are clean.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Matt. Well, everyone, one thing we definitely always want to ensure that you are aware of is you definitely have unlimited support here with Hayes in many, many ways. So one thing I do want to mention is please reach out to our support team. Their email is there and their number. Actively reach out to them before you spend too much time trying to figure out, the distribution or the collection process. We are collecting data from others. We want to ensure that we can share that with each of you. So as you are starting to look through various processes or you come up with those scenarios, like we talked about security aspects of the devices regarding internet access and so forth. Please connect with us. Additionally, if it's more of a, hey, we thought of something really cool, please go and reach out to us as well to share that information. You can reach out to our support team. You can reach out to myself. Jason, you have his email as well. And mine is sdelgado@haysoft.com. And just, we are here to support you. Additionally, I would love to also have Andressa speak a little bit about the success team. Are you there, Andressa?
I am. I was just struggling with my mute button. Yeah, as I presented in the beginning when I was talking about the customer success team, my team is responsible in ensuring that you are and you feel successful. You are part of the Hayes family, and we care about you, how you feel, and we want to learn from you on how we can best assist you all and how we can make your life easier. And that's why we are constantly reaching out to you via email, via phone calls, sometimes even cold calls, because we want to talk to you a little bit for 15 minutes sometime over the phone so we can understand what's coming up, what's happening, your short-term goals, your long-term goals, so we can proactively help you all in anything that could potentially become a reactive approach or even become a roadblock for you. We can avoid that. Then please do not hesitate to contact us if you have any questions, if there's anything we can do for you. Our main goal, once again, is making sure you are good and you are supported. I put it in the chat here. The Customer Success Department email, it's easy as customersuccess@haysoft.com. And of course, if you know who's your customer success manager, that's fantastic. Reach out to them directly. I feel like if you are here today, there's a pretty big chance that you actually know who they are. Then we are here for you to advocate for you. Then please reach out to us anytime there's something going on. We want to be part of your journey. Thank you, Steph.
Of course, thank you, Andressa. And with that, I would like to thank each of you for joining today. Again, this is an unprecedented time. We are just trying to connect each of you as well as try to learn from each of you. So thank you for taking time out of your extremely busy days to join our session. And I say this from myself as well as the rest of us at Hayes. Thank you for supporting our students and for supporting the continued education of our students. We are grateful for each of you being on those kind of front lines. And we hope that today was beneficial and you gained some good information today. Again, we are going to be continuing to push out additional information and potential sessions so that we can continue to glean some good information from each other. So look for some additional possible sessions to come. Again, thank you, everybody, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Hi, everybody. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.